After learning a startling secret, your special someone vowed never to see your face again. When your loved someone viewed the last line on that screen, something inside of them froze. Their hands ceased to move. The individual seated across from them saw the sudden change in their expression. They had been looking for a common response to a common query about you only moments before. Rather, they discovered a secret that changed the appearance of every exchange, every inexplicable quiet, and every moment spent together. They read it once. But then again. Then, more slowly, a third time. Thus, this is their true identity. They muttered. Here's the odd bit, though. It wasn't the secret that caused the most pain. It was the knowledge that you had kept it a secret from them. Why would someone they loved so much keep something this significant a secret? And why did one small detail give them the impression that their knowledge of you might be lacking? The reaction that followed was much larger than anyone in the room had anticipated, so hold on to this moment. Without giving an explanation, they got up and moved in the direction of the window, attempting to make sense of what they had found. Cars were driving down the street as if nothing had happened, but everything had changed within that room. Their thoughts raced through the past. A discussion you abruptly changed, a subject you used to dodge, that odd expression on your face when they got too close to inquiring about your history. Things that had previously seemed pointless were starting to make sense. Then someone behind them whispered, "Maybe you should ask them before deciding what this means." Your particular someone looked around, uncertainty rather than rage in their eyes. The true pain was shown by the question, "Ask them what? Why they let me believe something completely different?" They weren't offended by your flaws. Because they thought you had trusted everyone but them, they were shaken. However, did they see the entire truth or only the most deceptive aspect of it? Because there was another detail they hadn't yet uncovered beneath what they had just learned, and that detail might totally undo everything they believed to be true about you. They picked up their phone a few minutes later and started talking to you. The screen displayed your name. Above it, their thumb lingered. It appeared for a split second that they might give you a call. Rather, it was emotion. "I never want to see their face again," they firmly yet softly declared. There was silence in the room. It sounded definitive. However, their eyes sent an entirely different message. They didn't appear to have lost interest. They appeared to be someone who was frantically attempting to figure out why caring had suddenly become so painful. Then their phone came to life. The individual who had discovered the secret initially appeared with a fresh message, "Not from you." Your special someone looked down, anticipating further affirmation. Instead, they were given a single statement. "Before passing judgment, you should see the others." Their faces went cold. The information they had found was not inaccurate, but it was also incomplete. There was one secret truth about who you really were that no one had revealed, along with a missing page and a missing reason. What could possibly cause someone to make a vow to never see you again and then, just moments later, doubt that vow? They sat back down carefully, opened the new attachment, and gazed at the first words that appeared on the screen. They were about to discover something that would make them reevaluate not just your secret but all of their previous assumptions about you. You weren't protected by the attachment. It was tough to ignore because of that. Your particular someone has prepared justifications, thoughtful justifications, and perhaps even something to downplay the significance of the finding. Rather, Dates were on the first page. There were messages in the second. The third disclosed a choice you had made long before you two had such a strong emotional bond. Now, their eyes were moving more quickly in an attempt to find the phrase that would sum up everything, but then they abruptly halted. It was there. The fact that you had been posing as someone else wasn't the secret. It was because you had purposefully concealed the extent of what you had given up to keep someone you formerly loved safe, and instead of revealing someone else's personal struggle, you allowed yourself to be misinterpreted. Your particular someone leaned in closer to the screen. They said, "Wait," they knew. The person next to them gave a nod. Much earlier than you did. Abruptly, the question was altered. Why would you put up with criticism for something you could have clarified in a matter of seconds? Instead of sharing someone else's personal experience, why would you run the risk of losing someone significant? The last message implied that there was another reason for your quiet, one that was directly related to your special someone, thus something was still lacking. Suddenly, their vow to never see your face again seemed much more weighty. Unable to leave the unanswered questions behind, they left the screen and came back nearly quickly. A recollection came to mind. They had questioned you months prior about why you occasionally fell silent when the topic of trust came up. It sounded enigmatic at the time, but you had grinned and stated, "Some truths need the right moment." It sounded now like a warning they hadn't comprehended. When they got to the last part of the attachment, they found something even more surprising. Apparently, you had been getting ready to inform them yourself. Their name was at the top of a draft message that was written but never sent. Their expression softened as they read, "If you ever learn this from someone else, please know there is more to the story." Why hadn't you hit the send button? Were you worried that they would leave? Or did something occur before you had a chance? You are invited to share this story if it captures your attention. Share your opinions in the comments section or subscribe to see what happens next. Because your special someone hadn't yet read the last paragraph of that unsent communication, which was more crucial than the explanation. They went back to their seat and scrolled down. As each statement unveiled a side of you they had never seen before, their breathing slowed. Someone who carried responsibilities in silence, had made mistakes, learned from them, and refused to establish a relationship based on pity. Then the line that totally altered their expression appeared. "Instead of choosing me because you felt sorry for what I carried in front of you, I wanted you to choose me for who I am with you." Your particular someone averted their gaze from the TV and covered their mouth. They had assumed you were dishonest because of the startling secret. Something much more complex was implied by the complete reality. You had been guarding your limits, biding your time, and attempting to gain the courage to tell them everything on your own. There was still one question, though. Why had someone purposefully presented only the most harmful portion first if that was the entire explanation? The sender's name caught your particular someone's attention once more. Something clicked this time. They knew what it was. Enough, but not too near. They questioned, "Why would they send me this?" No one responded. Then there was another alert. A brief message. This time, there is no attachment. Confusion was transformed into resolve in just 8 words. They didn't tell you something about your connection. Your special someone silently reached for their coat after staring at those words. Suddenly, the person who had vowed never to see your face again was thinking about doing just that. They never got the coat on their shoulders. Halfway to the door, your particular someone stopped when they had another thought. What if rushing to you now will result in yet another miscommunication? After turning around and covering the chair with the coat, they reopened the original message. They weren't reading with emotion this time. They were searching for discrepancies. The first portion had been sent by whom? Why had the most crucial context been eliminated? And why had it come at the very moment when it was getting difficult to ignore your connection? The timestamp caught their attention, followed by a name tucked away in the sent data. Acknowledgement was gradual. This individual had previously encountered both of you. Someone who was sufficiently familiar with your past to make half of the truth seem plausible, but not enough to comprehend the reasons behind your decisions. Your special someone suddenly recalled a conversation from weeks ago. "Are you sure you really know them?" was a casual question posed by the same person, which seemed innocuous at the time. It felt oddly purposeful now. However, your particular someone saw something else before suspicion could turn into conviction. Hours before the truth was revealed, you had attempted to get in touch with them earlier that day. One call was missed. One voicemail left incomplete. Did you anticipate this? They hit the play button. Your voice came through in a low-key, dramatic manner. "I should have clarified things earlier, and I don't want you to hear a version that casts doubt on our relationship." The recording then abruptly stopped. Your special someone gazed at the phone. The incomplete sentence accomplished something that the materials were unable to. It demonstrated that you had been attempting to communicate before anything was revealed. Their rage started to give way to regret, a more difficult feeling. They recalled saying that they would never want to see your face again, but those words sounded different now. Had they condemned you just when you were about to put all of your trust in them? One question, however, would not go away. What specifically were you getting ready to confess? Your quiet was explained by the attachment, but the enigmatic last warning regarding your connection remained unexplained. Next, they saw a tiny icon next to the voicemail. Moments later, a second, 17-second recording was transmitted, but it was never opened. Their finger lingered over it. Would everything be fixed in those 17 seconds? Or disclose the one fact that would explain their initial response? They took part in it. This time, your voice sounded different, as if you had finally come to the conclusion that there was no safe way to avoid the truth. My background is not the only part of the secret. It has to do with why I recognized you before you did. The room was silent. The sentence was instantly repeated by your beloved someone. Do you recognize them? Where is it coming from? They looked over recollections of your initial encounter. The awkward familiarity they mistook for immediate chemistry, the hesitancy in your grin, and the way you stared at them for an extra second. All of a sudden, those details had a different significance. An outdated photo was attached near the bottom of the remaining document when they opened it. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't controversial. It was just a picture from a public event years ago that neither of you had discussed since. Your beloved someone was standing in the background. You stood a few steps away, nearly obscured by the frame's edge. Their eyes grew wide. Before any of you realized what that moment would ultimately signify, your paths had crossed. However, the case became more complex when a handwritten note was found beneath the picture. On this day, they unknowingly altered my course. What did I do? your special someone asked in a whisper before reaching for the code once more. Only a few hours had passed since the vow to never see you. They had to look you in the eyes now and ask the question that no one else could respond to. What transpired on that long-forgotten day that brought back memories of them? The question had grown nearly intolerable by the time your particular someone arrived at the location where they wanted to find you. What might they have done years ago that lingered in your memory but vanished entirely from theirs? As they entered and looked around the room, the evening air felt remarkably still. You weren't present. Their expression briefly showed disappointment, but suddenly the person behind the desk recognized the picture on their phone. The individual said, "I remember that event." Your special someone showed them the handwritten letter and said, "A lot of people came through that day." After examining it, the individual gave a slight smile. Maybe this wasn't about something dramatic you did. Sometimes people remember the smallest kindness at exactly the moment they needed it. That sentence landed differently. Your particular someone re-examined the old photo, attempting to piece together a lost afternoon. Then a memory came to mind, not very clearly, but sufficiently. There had been a lone person standing close to the exit. Someone is anxious. Someone who is unsure about staying. Had you been that person? If yes, what was it that your particular someone said that you still remember years later? The solution came from something that was almost absurdly commonplace. A display cabinet containing an outdated event program. On the reverse of one copy, your particular someone identified their own handwriting. All of a sudden, the memories came back. They had seen you, a stranger, getting ready to leave years ago when something you had hoped for didn't work out. They had no knowledge of your life. They just provided a few impromptu remarks after noticing the disappointment on your face. Who you become next is not determined by a single closed door. After that, they left. No names were shared. No figures. There is no hope that we will ever cross paths again. But that little interaction had come at just the right time for you. You remained. That afternoon, you made a different choice, which subtly affected all that came after. You identified your special someone almost instantly when you finally got to meet them years later. You were completely unrecognizable to them. You remained silent because you were worried that disclosing the connection too soon would make your developing relationship seem fake rather than genuine. You are welcome to tell the tale if you have been keeping a close eye on this enigma. If you like heartwarming tales where a single, subtle detail may alter the whole picture, please subscribe and let me know in the comments what you would have done. Because the reason you remembered them had finally been revealed by your special someone. However, they were still unable to figure out why someone intended this lovely truth to appear to be dishonesty. Before they could depart, their phone began to vibrate. It was you who sent the message this time. No unidentified sender. No documents were forwarded. The only thing that stopped them was your name glowing on the screen. I am aware of what you found out, and I can appreciate your desire to never see me again. Your particular someone typed a response right away, erased it, typed another, and then paused. After making that commitment, what could they possibly say? At last, they made a call. After a few rings, you answered, but at first neither of you said anything. Everything was conveyed through the quiet. The miscommunication, the hastily spoken words, the secret, and the unexpected significance of years of coincidence. You gave a modest response when your particular someone inquired, "Why didn't you just tell me?" "Because I needed to know you could choose who I am now without feeling responsible for who I became." Their eyes closed. All of a sudden, your silence, the secret photo, and the unspoken confession came together. However, you added something for which they were unprepared. Your particular someone's visage pinched as they said, "And there's another reason I waited." What reason? There was another pause. Your beloved someone turned to face the door when you added, "The person who sent you that secret knew exactly what they were doing." Who are they? They anticipated a name. Rather, you provided them with a link. And their whole expression altered as soon as they realized who had been standing silently between the two of you. Though not in the way they had dreaded, the connection was deeper than your special someone had anticipated. At last, you clarified that the sender was a person who had known you during the challenging phase of that past incident. Someone who recalled your doubt, understood the profound impact that fleeting encounter had on your path, and subsequently recognized your unique identity. However, they came up with their own interpretation rather than asking you about it. They thought you had purposefully centered your relationship around that overlooked encounter. Where there had been hesitation, they perceived manipulation. Where there had been real emotion, they saw strategy. And they felt your particular someone should be the first to know when they found out you were finally getting ready to explain everything yourself. However, why send merely pieces? Why did you cut out the sentences that gave your justifications? That identical question was posed by your special someone, and you responded quietly since telling the whole truth would not have elicited the response they were hoping for. The surrounding room seems to vanish. All of a sudden, their vow to never see your face again seemed like a choice that someone else had nearly made for them. The question you had been avoiding all evening was then posed by your particular someone. "Did that day make you feel something for me when we reconnected years later?" You didn't respond right away. More than any paper, that quiet terrified them. "No. I remembered you, but I didn't know you," you finally responded. That difference altered everything. You clarified that the stranger from years ago had only symbolized a single significant event. Hundreds of entirely unique experiences, longer than expected talks, character-revealing arguments, unexpected laughing, and subtle gestures that no one else noticed, were the foundation of the person you came to care about. "I didn't fall for a memory," you declared. Your particular someone bowed their head, taken aback by how drastically the story had changed. "I fell for the person I discovered afterward." However, there was still a question. Why had you occasionally distanced yourself from them as the relationship grew more serious if you had known them from the start? You responded right away.